Rumors of the lost cruisers. The galaxy was full of stories, and most of them were lies. Merchants told tall tales in smoke-filled taverns. Soldiers bragged about battles they had never fought. Miners swore they saw ghosts in the stars after 2. Many drinks. Most stories faded like dust. But one story never faded, the story of Earth's Grande Royale-Class cruisers. The aliens called them phantoms of steel. Ships too large to be real. Weapons too powerful to exist. Some said they were the size of moons. Others whispered they could bend light, or even silence suns. Most people laughed when they heard it. Humans, they would say, always full of drama. But in quiet corners of the galaxy, some did not laugh. They remembered, centuries ago, during the last Great War, the humans had fought like no other species. Outnumbered, outgunned, they still stood. When the empires closed in, Earth unveiled its secret, the Grande Royale-Class cruisers. Massive. Warships that tore through enemy fleets like fire through paper. And then, just as suddenly as they appeared, the cruisers were gone. No wrecks, no surrender, no records. Earth went silent. The Council declared them destroyed, buried in the war's ashes. But silence leaves space for whispers, and whispers never die. On a lonely outpost at the edge of the spiral rim, a small alien scout crew sat bored at their stations. Their job was simple: monitor traffic, watch for pirates, send reports. Nothing ever happened. Days blurred together in gray silence, until one night the sensors caught something strange. The youngest officer squinted at the glowing screen. "Captain, I think we picked up a shadow." A captain sighed. "A shadow? In space?" "Yes." "Sir, look, it blocks the stars, but there's no engine trail, no signal, nothing." The crew leaned forward. At first it looked like empty space, but then they saw it. A vast outline, darker than the void itself, drifting slowly across the stars. The officer whispered, "It's too big for a station, too fast for a moon." "Sir, it's a ship." The captain shook his head. "No ship is that large." But his voice trembled. The crew magnified the image. Slowly, details sharpened angled armor plates, scars of old battles, faint blue lines of power running across a hull wider than cities. One word filled the room: cruiser. The oldest officer gasped. Not just any cruiser. Grande Royale. Fear spread through the crew like fire. They scrambled to record, to send data back to the Council. But the moment they tried to transmit, the systems went dead. Every screen turned black. The comms froze. Only the view outside remained. The ship had noticed them. The Grande Royale-Class cruiser turned, slowly, like a mountain waking from sleep. Its bulk filled the viewport, blocking the stars, making the crew feel smaller than insects. No lights shone from its hull, no banners, no signal. Only silence. "Run," someone whispered, but the captain stood frozen. He remembered the stories. He remembered how entire fleets had been silenced with one shot. He expected death to come in an instant dot, yet nothing happened. The cruiser watched them. Long minutes passed. Then, just as silently as it had come, the massive warship turned again and drifted back into the dark. Engines pulsed once, then it was gone. The outpost systems flickered back to life. The screens lit up. Comms crackled again. The crew stared at one another, pale and shaking. "What do we tell the Council?" One officer asked. "The truth," the captain said. His voice was hoarse. "Tell them the cruisers are real. Tell them humanity never lost them. Tell them." He hesitated, looking once more at the stars. "Tell them the ghosts have returned." Across the galaxy, rumors spread like wildfire. A merchant on Vera claimed to see a black shadow pass over his convoy, leaving every ship powerless for an hour. A miner on Drasil swore he found fragments of armor too dense for any known metal. An old veteran whispered that the cruisers had never been destroyed. They had only been hidden, waiting for the day Earth needed them again. The council tried to calm the people. They said the recordings were faked. They said pirates spread lies to cause fear. But the whispers did not stop. It grew louder, and then came the proof. A convoy of 200 ships vanished near the rim. No wrecks. No signals. Only one terrified survivor drifted back, muttering the same words over and over. Grande Royale, Grande Royale. In that moment, the galaxy remembered. The humans had once built warships too powerful to exist. The council had mocked them, buried their name in silence. But now, silence itself had returned, wearing the armor of giants. And everyone, from the richest emperor to the poorest child, asked the same question. If one cruiser had awakened, how many more still waited in the dark? Fear returns to the galaxy. Council tried to deny it. They held meetings in their shining halls, their voices sharp with arrogance. They told the galaxy the recordings were false, the survivors were liars, and Earth was still weak and silent. But fear is not easy to kill. The rumor of the Grande Royale-Class cruisers spread faster than any council speech merchants carried. The story from system to system. Miners whispered it in the dark tunnels. Soldiers repeated it in hushed voices as they polished their weapons. Everywhere the same words were spoken. The cruisers have returned. It was not just rumor anymore. Reports piled up. A Trojan patrol of 50 ships failed to return from a border run. The only message they sent was a half-broken scream. It's huge. It's watching us. Before static swallowed the channel, a Zeran freighter convoy of 200 vessels vanished. All cargo lost. No wreckage, no survivors. Only drifting. Silence where once the trade route had been busy with light. Each story added fuel to the fire. Inside the council chamber, chaos reigned. We must act, cried the Krell overlord, slamming his clawed hand on the table. If humans truly hold these ships, we must crush them before they multiply. The Lyran ambassador hissed. Fool, you saw the reports. Fleets disappear in minutes. What good? Are our ships if they vanish like smoke? Others shouted back and forth. Some demanded weapons research. Some called for surrender. But the loudest voice came from the old Veyric chancellor. She rose slowly, her blind eyes staring into nothing, her voice cold as stone. I told you, she said. The cruisers were never myths. Humanity does not shout its strength. Humanity waits. They waited centuries in silence. And now they return. Across the galaxy, the fear was worse. On the world of Droz, citizens looked at the night sky with terror, pointing as stars flickered unnaturally. On the trade hubs of Zyrel, merchants closed their stalls, whispering that humans no longer needed money. They had shadows. Even children began to play a new game. They would sit in the dark, covering the lights, whispering, Grande Royale is coming. Fear had become a part of daily life. Then came the convoy disaster. The Grand Alliance of Trade sent their strongest fleet, 200 ships, to escort cargo across the rim. It was a show of power, meant to calm the people. Crowds cheered as the fleet departed, banners shining, engines blazing. 3 days later, the fleet was gone. No signals. No wrecks. Only one shattered vessel limped back, engines burning out. The captain was alive, but his mind was broken. He repeated the same words, again and again. Too big, too strong. One shot, all gone. Grande Royale. Grande Royale. The images from his ship's logs were worse. A shadow darker than space itself. A cruiser so massive it dwarfed his fleet. Firing once. Just once. And then everything was gone. The council could no longer hide the truth. Panic spread to every empire. Borders bristled with weapons. Fleets were pulled from colonies to defend homeworlds. Research labs burned with desperate energy, searching for weapons that could fight shadows. But nothing worked. Missiles were too slow. Beams passed through empty space. Even the strongest shields collapsed like paper when the cruiser's cannons roared. Every scientist, every admiral, every strategist whispered the same grim words. We cannot fight this. In the markets, in the fields, in the mines, the people already knew to them. The Grande Royale-Class cruisers were not just ships. They were ghosts of Earth's vengeance. Proof that humans had never forgiven the galaxy for mocking them, for casting them aside, for calling them weak. The fear grew worse when survivors claimed to hear voices from the ships. Not signals, not radio. Voices. One miner said the cruiser whispered into his mind as it passed, "We are watching." A soldier swore. He heard a calm voice in his ear. Stand down or be erased. Whether lies or truth, the galaxy believed. And belief is more dangerous than any fleet. In a dark chamber far from the council, alien warlords gathered in secret. We cannot wait, one hissed. If we allow this fear to grow, the people will turn to Earth before we fire a single shot. Then, what do you suggest? Another growled. A test, the first said. Send our strongest fleet against one cruiser. If we win, the myth dies. If we lose, he did not finish. None of them wanted to imagine that, but they agreed. Pride is a poison, and arrogance burns hotter than fear. And so, fleets began to gather once more, not to defend, not to run, but to strike at the shadows. In the silence of space, the humans waited. The Grande Royale-Class cruiser that had revealed itself drifted quietly, its massive hull gleaming faintly with energy lines. Inside, its crew watched the galaxy panic. No smiles, no laughter, only patience. They knew what was coming. And when the alien fleets arrived, the galaxy would learn the truth. The cruisers were not ghosts. They were executioners. The test of power. The galaxy could not live on fear alone. The council had argued, shouted, and panicked for weeks, but fear without action was poison. The empires grew restless. The soldiers whispered. The citizens demanded answers. Pride, heavy and dangerous, began to outweigh caution. And so, the council made a choice. They would test the myth. The fleet they assembled was the strongest in centuries. 10 empires each sent their best ships, sleek destroyers, heavy cruisers, carriers armed, with drones and massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. Over 5,000 warships gathered at the edge of council space. At the head stood Admiral Vorak of the Krell Dominion, a commander known for his iron will and ruthless victories. He addressed the fleet with booming words. His voice carried across every channel. Today, we end this fear. Today, we prove that humans are not gods, not shadows, not legends. They are flesh, and flesh burns. The Grande Royale-Class cruiser will fall, and the galaxy will remember who rules the stars. His soldiers cheered. Their courage was born not from strength, but from desperation. The trap was simple. Scouts had reported a single cruiser drifting near the empty system of Dareth, its massive form silent, its weapons cold. The fleet would surround it, crush it with overwhelming firepower, and broadcast the victory across the galaxy. It was meant to be quick. It was meant to be easy. It was meant to kill a ghost. The fleet arrived in fire and thunder. 5,000. Ships dropped out of warp, their engines blazing, their weapons primed. The stars themselves seemed dimmer as their shadows stretched across the system. And there it was, the cruiser. It floated alone, its colossal frame half hidden in the void. Its armor was black as midnight, scarred by old battles. Energy pulsed faintly along its hull. Like veins of light beneath stone dot, it did not move. It did not signal. It only watched. Targeted, Admiral Vorak ordered. Lock every weapon. Do not wait. Thousands of targeting beams locked onto the human warship. Thousands of missiles armed themselves. Plasma cannons glowed like suns. Fire. The void erupted. Missiles streaked through space. Plasma storms burned. Energy beams tore across the darkness. The combined fury of 10 empires struck the cruiser. With all the rage of the galaxy dot, the system lit up like a newborn star. When the light faded, the fleet cheered until the smoke cleared. The cruiser was still there. Not a scratch. Not a mark. The colossal warship drifted silently, untouched, as if the attack had been nothing more than a breeze. The cheering died. Terror crept back into the voices of hardened soldiers. "What? What happened?" whispered one officer. Admiral Vorak clenched his fists. "Fire again. Do not stop. Everything you have." The fleet obeyed. Wave after wave of weapons hurled toward the cruiser. Torpedoes, drones, energy lances, the void burned with light and fury. And still, nothing. Every missile vanished before. Impact. Every beam scattered into the dark. Every drone blinked out, powerless. As if swallowed by the void itself, the cruiser remained, silent, watching. Then it moved. Slowly, its colossal frame shifted. Its main cannon, a vast barrel running the length of the ship, began to glow with a pale blue light. "Brace!" Vorak shouted. The glow built, brighter and brighter, until the void itself seemed to tremble. And then it fired. The shot was not loud. It was not violent. It was quiet. A single beam of pale light cut across the system like a blade of ice. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, 500 ships were gone. Not destroyed. Gone. One moment they existed, the next they were. Dust and silence. Whole formations erased in an instant. The fleet screamed in panic. Shields collapsing. Weapons failing. They're tearing through us. The cruiser fired again. Another 1,000 ships vanished, erased without flame. No wreckage, no bodies. Only silence. Admiral Vorak shouted orders, his voice cracking with desperation. "Retreat! Scatter! Get out of range!" But there was no escape. The cruiser flickered. One moment it was in the distance, the next it was among them, drifting through their formation like a shadow. Ships collided, trying to flee. Drones fired, blindly, and hit their own allies. The fleet collapsed in chaos. Not another blast. Hundreds gone. Another. Thousands erased out in less than an hour. 5,000 ships had been reduced to silence. Only a handful survived. Admiral Vorak's flagship was one of them. His ship's hull burned, its weapons broken, but somehow it lived. As his battered vessel limped away, he stared at the black giant still drifting calmly in the void. It did not chase him. It did not finish the kill. It only turned slowly, as though letting him go. And then it sent a message. A single transmission. 3 words. Grande Royale, returning. The survivors carried that message back to the council. Their recordings spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Billions watched the destruction, watched fleets vanish in silence, watched the cruiser drift untouched among the wreckage. And they all heard the words Grande Royale. Returning. Fear became terror. Terror became submission. Empires that once mocked humanity now trembled at the name of Earth. The galaxy understood the truth. The Grande Royale-Class cruisers were not just relics. They were warnings, and the warnings had only just begun. Earth's. Silence breaks. Galaxy had no more doubts. The Council's fleet of 5,000 ships was gone, erased by a single human cruiser. The survivors had returned broken, their voices shaking, repeating the same chilling words. Grande Royale, returning. The recordings of the battle spread across every world. Billions watched fleets vanish in seconds, watched weapons fail, and heard that final transmission. No council speech, no propaganda, could erase what everyone had seen. The galaxy knew the truth now. Humanity was awake. For centuries, Earth had been silent. Their signals had faded from the stars. Their ships had vanished from the lanes. Their embassies had closed their doors. Many believed humanity had destroyed itself. Others said they had been conquered in secret. Some even claimed they had abandoned. The galaxy had gone beyond Dot. But now, the silence was broken. It began with whispers on the edge of known space. Distant listening posts picked up strange signals, low hums buried in static, coded transmissions bouncing across dark matter fields. At first, they thought it was noise. But when decoded, the messages were clear. Do not test us again. The words spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every empire's spies confirmed the same thing: human channels were alive again. Earth was speaking. Inside the council chamber, panic turned to dread. The alien rulers argued with trembling voices. Are taunting us. The Krell overlord roared, though his claws shook as he slammed the table. They want us afraid. They do not need to taunt us, hissed the Lyran ambassador. Look at the wreckage of Dareth. They have already won. The Vaeric chancellor leaned forward, her blind eyes staring into nothing. No, this is not taunting. This is warning. Humanity does not waste words. If they say, do not test us again, then it means they are done being patient. Silence filled the chamber. Every ruler knew the truth, but none wanted to say it. Aloud, the humans held the galaxy's throat, and with one squeeze, they could end everything. Meanwhile, across the spiral arms, ordinary people were not waiting for the Council's orders. On border worlds, governors surrendered without a fight, sending desperate messages to Earth begging for mercy. On colonies far from home, soldiers deserted, leaving their posts rather than face the shadows. On trade hubs, merchants whispered new prayers. May the Grande Royale pass us by. The galaxy was already bending. Earth had not conquered a single planet, but entire empires were kneeling in fear. Then the spies brought proof. Deep inside council space, an alien infiltration team broke into a hidden human relay station. What they found froze their blood. Dozens of Grande Royale-Class cruisers lined up inside a massive dock, their hulls black as night, their cannons glowing faintly with restrained power. Engines hummed with life. Armor gleamed with scars of old wars. Each ship looked like a god of steel waiting to awaken. The spies fled, carrying images back to their masters. When the council saw them, the chamber fell silent. The message was undeniable. The first cruiser was not alone. Humanity had an entire fleet. And if one cruiser could erase thousands of ships, what could dozens do? That night, across 1,000 worlds, the galaxy shivered. Parents told children to stay indoors. Soldiers refused to board their ships. Priests declared it was the judgment of the stars that no one laughed at humanity anymore. And then, for the first time in centuries, Earth itself spoke. Across every channel, across every planet, across every ship in the galaxy, screens flickered too. Black, silence pressed down like a weight. And then a human voice filled the void. It was calm. It was steady. It was undeniable. You mocked us. You hunted us. You believed humanity weak. We chose silence, not defeat. We chose patience, not surrender. But you would not leave us alone. Now you have seen the Grande Royale. You have seen what silence has built. The galaxy listened. Frozen in fear, the voice continued. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your slaves or your riches. We only wanted peace. But if you strike at us again, then silence will not protect you. It will consume you. And then the broadcast ended. The screens went black again. In the council chamber, no one spoke for a long time. The rulers who once roared with arrogance now sat pale and trembling. The Veyric chancellor finally whispered, "It is over. Humanity has broken the silence. And now the galaxy must choose obey or vanish." Far away, in the void, the Grande Royale fleet stirred. Their engines glowed faintly, their shadows spread wider, and their cannons pointed at the stars. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy trembled. The march of the cruisers. Galaxy had heard Earth's warning. But warnings alone were not enough. When the human broadcast ended, silence returned. Yet this silence was not comforting. It was heavy, suffocating, filled with the weight of fear. Every empire waited for the next move, and the waiting itself was torture. The move came sooner than anyone expected. The Grande Royale-Class cruisers began to march. They did not move like other fleets. There were no bright engines, no loud signals, no banners of conquest. Instead, they appeared. One moment the stars were clear. The next, shadows darker than night drifted into view. The first to feel their presence was the Zayran Dominion. There, border patrols reported a ripple in the void. Then a black cruiser slid into orbit above a frontier world. Panic spread instantly. Defense fleets scrambled, weapons armed, but before they could fire, their systems failed. Shields collapsed, engines died. The cruiser hovered silently above their capital city. For 1 full hour, it stayed. No shots fired, no demands given, only silence. And then, without a trace, it vanished. The message was clear. On other worlds, the same thing happened. In the Drozen Empire, a cruiser drifted above a military training ground. Thousands of young soldiers stood frozen, staring at the godlike vessel filling the sky. Their commanders shouted orders, but the soldiers did not move. Fear had rooted them in place. In the Lyran territories, a cruiser appeared in the middle of a trade route, blocking hundreds of merchant convoys. For 10 minutes, no one moved, no one breathed, until the cruiser glided aside, letting the convoys pass. The merchants spread the story everywhere. The shadows let us live. The galaxy realized something terrifying. The cruisers were not destroying worlds at random. They were choosing. They were teaching. Every appearance, every silence was a lesson. Humanity was saying, "We could erase you, but we will not if you remember." Still, not everyone accepted the lesson. The proud Zayran armada, humiliated by the fear spreading through their people, decided to strike. They gathered a fleet of 300 ships and set a trap for a lone cruiser reported near the rim. Trap was perfect. Ships surrounded it from all sides, weapons primed, escape cut off. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The cruiser flickered once, its cannon glowing blue. A single shot erased half the fleet. The survivors tried to retreat, but the cruiser appeared among them, cutting through their formation like a phantom. One by one, their ships vanished into silence. When the battle ended, only 2 vessels limped away. Both carried the same broadcast, burned into their systems without warning. Do not test Earth again. The recording spread across the galaxy. Billions watched, and the fear deepened. Soldiers who had once dreamed of glory now refused to board their ships. Whole planets begged their rulers to stay silent, to avoid drawing the humans' eyes. Some began to worship the cruisers as more than ships. Temples rose on distant worlds, where alien priests whispered that humanity had become one with the void, that their shadows were divine. Whether god or ghost, it did not matter. The galaxy was already kneeling. In the council chamber, desperation grew. "We must unite," shouted one ruler. "If we surrender to fear, we are already dead." "Unite?" another scoffed. "Did we not unite at Dareth? 5,000 ships gone in hours. Do you wish to lose 500,000 next? The Varick Chancellor spoke softly, but every word struck like a blade. Listen to what the humans are telling us. They do not want our thrones. They do not want our worlds. They want only silence. But if we cannot give them silence, then silence will take us all. Her words echoed long after the meeting ended. Far away, in the black void, the march continued. The Grande Royale-Class cruisers drifted system to system, always choosing their targets with purpose. They never conquered, but they left messages written in fear. Fleets disappeared. Stations were erased. Whole planets lived for days beneath their shadows, wondering if the next second would bring destruction. Each appearance was a reminder. Humanity had not returned for war. Humanity had returned for dominance without banners, without occupation, without chains. On the bridge of one cruiser, the human captain watched the galaxy's panic unfold. His crew moved in silence, their faces calm, their voices steady. They knew what the galaxy did not yet understand. This was not war. This was control. The council will gather again, the captain murmured. They will call for one last stand. Let them. When they do, the galaxy will learn what silence truly means. His officers nodded. No smiles, no laughter. Only patience. For patience was the greatest weapon Earth had ever built. And so the march of the cruisers continued, unstoppable, unchallenged. Like shadows across the stars, the galaxy trembled, waiting for the storm to break. And in the silence, humanity prepared its final answer. The galaxy's desperate stand. The galaxy had reached its breaking point. The Grande Royale-Class cruisers marched without resistance, drifting from system to system like shadows of doom. Worlds lived in fear. Fleets abandoned their posts, and even the proudest empires bent under the silence. Humanity had not conquered a single planet, yet the galaxy was already kneeling. But pride is a poison, and the rulers of the council could not bear to live under fear forever. And so, they made a final choice. They would unite one last time. The council called it the Grand Coalition, a force greater than any fleet ever seen. Every empire sent ships, dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, destroyers, hundreds of thousands of vessels gathered around the bright star of Valinor. It was a sight so vast that even seasoned admirals trembled to look upon it. From every channel came the same desperate message. This time, humanity will face us all. Admiral Vorik, scarred and broken from his last defeat at Dareth, was dragged back to lead. He stood on the bridge of the flagship, his voice hoarse but steady. We do not fight for glory, he told the fleet. We fight for survival. If we fall here, the galaxy belongs to Earth. If we win, we remind them that they are not gods. Today, we make our stand. The soldiers cheered, but deep in their hearts, they remembered the silence. They remembered how one cruiser had erased 5,000 ships in an hour. And now they were facing an entire fleet. The silence came first. Scanners picked up ripples in the void. The stars bent, their light twisting as shadows slid into the system. Then they appeared. Not one, not 10. Dozens. The Grande Royale-Class cruisers. They filled the system, their colossal frames blotting out the stars. Their cannons glowed faintly, their black hulls scarred from old wars, their silence heavier than the roar of any fleet. The galaxy had gathered its greatest armada. Humanity had brought only shadows. The order was given. Fire! And the void erupted. Hundreds of thousands of warships unleashed their fury. Plasma storms ripped across the system. Missiles streaked like falling suns. Energy beams cut through space in blinding arcs. The star of Valinor itself seemed to shiver under the storm of fire. For a heartbeat, hope flickered. Then the light faded, and the cruisers remained, not a single mark on their hulls. Not a scratch. The galaxy's greatest fleet had struck with everything. It had, and nothing had touched humanity's silence. Then the cruisers moved. The first cannon fired, a pale beam slicing across the system. 10,000 ships vanished in an instant. No wreckage. No flames. Only silence. Another shot. Another fleet gone. The cruisers flickered, slipping between shadows, appearing inside enemy formations. Ripples spread, and entire squadrons disappeared. Carriers split apart like toys. Dreadnoughts broke in half with no sound. The galaxy's greatest armada collapsed in chaos. Shields failing. Weapons offline. They're inside the lines. Admiral, we're surrounded. Panic swallowed discipline. Fleets broke. Formation. Commanders screamed into dead comes. Soldiers wept as the shadows consumed them. Admiral Vorak stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the destruction. He had fought wars for centuries, but nothing prepared him for this. This is not a battle, he whispered. This is judgment. Another blast tore through his fleet, and the system dimmed as if the star itself feared to shine. The slaughter lasted hours. By the end, the proud Grand Coalition was gone. Where once hundreds of thousands of ships had filled the skies, now only drifting wreckage remained. The cruisers hovered among the ruins, untouched, unbroken, their cannons glowing faintly with restrained power. Then, across every channel, the voice came again. Calm, heavy. Humor warned. 3 words. Nothing more. The survivors, few and broken, limped away. Their ships burned, their weapons gone, their courage shattered. They carried the recordings back to their people, back to the council. Billions watched in horror as the galaxy's mightiest armada fell in silence. And everyone knew the truth. The last stand had failed. The galaxy had no more fleets to give. On a dozen worlds, citizens cried out in despair. On others, leaders surrendered before Earth ever arrived. Some prayed to the shadows. Some cursed their rulers for ever provoking humanity. But all understood the same lesson. The humans had not returned to conquer. They had returned to command. Far away, in the void, the cruisers turned slowly, their black hulls swallowing the light of stars. They did not pursue the survivors. They did not fire again. They simply drifted, patient, eternal, waiting for the galaxy to kneel. For Earth had shown its power. And now, silence ruled the stars. Humanity's final word, the last stand, was over. The greatest fleet the galaxy had ever built, the Grand Coalition of hundreds of thousands of ships, was gone. Where once the skies of Valinor burned with fire, now only drifting wreckage remained. The proud banners of empires floated as ash. And among the ruins, the Grande Royale-Class cruisers drifted silently, untouched, unbroken. Their black hulls reflected nothing. Their cannons glowed faintly, as if waiting for one more order. But no more shots came. The cruisers had proven their power. Now, the galaxy waited for their decision. On worlds across the spiral arms, people huddled around projection screens. They had seen the recordings. They had watched the largest armada in history collapse in hours. They had heard the chilling words spoken across every channel. You were warned. Now they waited. Would humanity strike again? Would the cruisers sweep across the stars, erasing worlds as easily as fleets? Or would Earth speak? The waiting was worse than war. In the council chamber, silence reigned. The rulers sat pale and broken, their voices gone. The Krell overlord, once roaring with pride, now sat with his claws trembling. The Lyran ambassador, who once sneered at humanity, lowered his eyes in shame. Only the Varic chancellor spoke, her blind eyes staring into emptiness. It is finished, she whispered. The galaxy belongs to Earth. No one argued. Then it happened. Across every world, every station, Every ship, the stars flickered. Screens went black. Coms froze. Engines dimmed. For one endless heartbeat, the galaxy held its breath. And then, a human voice filled the void. It was calm. It was steady. It carried across billions of years like a hammer striking steel. You laughed at us. You called us weak. You thought our silence meant defeat. But silence was our weapon. While you mocked, we built. While you fought each other, we prepared. While you drowned in arrogance, we forged the Grande Royale. The galaxy listened, frozen. You have seen what one cruiser can do. You have seen what a fleet can erase. Do not mistake our patience for weakness again. We do not seek your thrones. We do not seek your riches. We do not seek your slaves. We seek only peace. But understand this, if you strike at Earth again, the silence will return, and it will not end until the galaxy itself is gone. The voice paused. Then it spoke the final words that would echo through history. Grande Royale stands eternal. Earth does not ask. Earth decides. And the broadcast ended. The galaxy fell into silence, not forced silence, but chosen. No fleets moved. No armies marched. No council dared to argue. Worlds surrendered without battles. Colonies swore loyalty without being asked. Empires that once roared with power now whispered their prayers to the void. Humanity had not conquered with chains or banners. They had conquered with fear, with silence, with patience. On backwater worlds, stories became legend. Parents told their children, "Do not anger the shadows, for they belong to Earth." Priests built temples to the dark cruisers, calling them guardians of balance. Merchants carried charms carved in the shape of black ships, believing it would spare them if the shadows passed by. The Grande Royale-Class cruisers had become more than war machines. They had become symbols of Earth's will, of Earth's silence, of humanity's final warning. On the bridge of one cruiser, the human captain stood quietly, watching the galaxy bend. His crew moved without speaking, their discipline unshaken. He looked out at the wreckage of Valinor, then at the stars beyond. "It is enough," he said softly. "They will remember." One officer asked, "And if they forget?" The captain's eyes were cold. "Then we remind them." And so the cruisers turned. One by one, they vanished back into the dark, slipping into the shadows of the void. No one knew where they went. Some believed they returned to hidden shipyards inside black holes. Others whispered they merged with the dark matter itself. All understood the same truth. They could return at any moment. Generations would pass, but the words would remain. Engraved in stone, carved in memory, Grande Royale stands eternal. Earth does not ask. Earth decides. The galaxy never laughed at humanity again. And in the silence between the stars, the shadows waited.